Very well, let's jump now into importing assets here. Marvel's Designer has been famous for the option or the ability that it gives us to create cloth for characters. But I'm gonna give you a very quick and cool tip right now. Characters, it's not the only thing that you can do. So I'm gonna go here to import, and I'm gonna import an FBX. I'm gonna jump, and there's gonna be a little what's the word? It's going to be a little folder for you on your project files, of course, that's divided by chapters. There we go, MD Primer project files. And right here in chapter 1, we got this table FBX ready to go. And this one is very, very, very important. This table was created inside of Maya. And Maya, as you guys know, works, or you can work in what we call real world scale. Meaning that if I were to model, I don't know, something like a cell phone, and I made this 15 units tall, it's going to be 15 centimeters tall. Marvel's Designer also works in real world, so it's very important, imperative, I would say, that you always work in real world scale so that your simulations and everything work as nicely as possible. So since this element right here is an avatar, it's going to count as an avatar, even though it's not a human element. I'm not going to open, I'm going to add it to the scene. So it's going to import it into my scene. I'm going to add it. You can also open it, but in this case, I'm going to add it. I'm going to do an avatar. We don't really need to create a fitting suit because this is not a human character. We also don't need to import any joint animation or cache animation. We don't need to add arrangement points. So in this case, since it's a very simple object, we don't need anything of that. However, as you can see here, you can technically animate the character, move it along in Maya or in 3D Studio Max or in Blender, and then import that animation so that you then export the baked animation into your software of preference. Now here, this is the most important part. You are going to change this to centimeters, okay? So by default, Maya comes in centimeters. Blender, I believe, comes in meters. I need to do a quick chest check. Probably you're going to see that in the next couple of videos, but Blender usually is in meters. So 1 unit in Blender is 1 meter, 1 unit in Maya is 1 centimeter. So since this table was made in Maya, we're going to use centimeter. The axis conversion, that's fine. We're going to keep it as it is, and we're just going to hit OK. And if everything works as expected, that's fine. We are going to get our nice little chair right here. And you can see it occupies a big area on the grid because it's supposed to be a big table. So how do we work now? Well, the cool thing is this is already working. You don't need to do anything. If you just create a new rectangle, like a pattern right here, and simulate, this thing will automatically collide with the object right there. So that's it. Do you want to create some handkerchiefs or some I don't know, tablecloths and things like that? This is very, very simple to do because as you can see, we just need to bring the element in. That's it. It's so easy. One of the cool things that I like about Marvel's Designer is that all of the collisions and everything are calculated based on the mesh itself. So of course, the heavier your mesh, the heavier the simulation is going to be. But as you can see here, we get a very, very nice result. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention in the past video is if you want to move a cloth or a piece of garment here in the 3D view, just click on it. And by clicking on it while the simulation is not running, you're going to get this combined gizmo where we find the rotation, the translation, and the scale as well. We're not going to be able to scale, of course, but you get that sort of square thing to constrain to a single plane. And if you just click and move it along, you're going to bring it wherever you want and run the simulation again to continue working from there. As with any other 3D software, garments here inside of Marvel's Designer will have 2 sides. So this one right here, as you can see, is the positive side or the normal side, and this one right here is the flip normal. So we can add thickness. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. However, it's just important for you to know that one side is going to be the correct size of your polygons. Now that we have this, let's talk about importing textures because textures are also going to be important just for visualization purposes. So again, on this, let me show you real quick. On the MD project files, there's going to be 3 textures for you: the base color, the normal, and the roughness. And it really helps to just see the proper texture. So you're going to click your object, and over here, you're going to see that it has a material selected. It's called PBR. It's just a basic material. It's not like in Blender or Maya where you need to create a material for each element. Each element has its own sort of a material pre-assigned to it. So over here on the texture, I'm just going to load the texture. It's just a matter of jumping where we need it to be right here. So that's the color. There we go. We're going to have some very nice colors right there. Then over here on the normal map, we can also do the normal map. Go again to the project files. There we go. Chapter 1. That's the normal map. And finally, here on the roughness, over here on the intensity, we can change this to map so that we can also plug in a map. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, my friends. This is not the engine that you're going to be using for renders. You're not going to be showing, maybe to some clients, right? Some advances or something, but you're not going to be seeing this very often. It's just a way to see something that looks a little bit nicer. So if we again click this, there's a couple of things that we can change. For instance, we're not using any displacement map. We can bring the intensity of the roughness map a little bit higher. The reflection, I think we can push it up a little bit more so that it reflects just a little bit more light. And that's pretty much it. There are lights here in the scene. There's two default lights, a global light and a single area light. You're going to find those not on the property editor, but on the scene browser. So if we go to the scene browser, well, actually, let me go back here to the property editor. We need to have the property editor on, but on this one, we can change this to the scene browser. And here on the environment, we're going to have this light, which is the global light. If we bring this all the way down, you're going to see that this is completely like dark. Let me stop the simulation. There we go. So this one gives me like just some global illumination. And then this one right here, again, here in the environment, the second light is going to be our directional light. We can change the color if we want to have like a sort of like a red tint or whatever. Again, this is one way to modify the elements. It's just for visualization purposes, but it's important for you guys to know how to import textures onto your scene, because that same process that I just showed you, we can do to import textures for a specific pattern. So if we go over here to the pattern options or to the fabric options, this fabric right here, which right now is white, you can see the color right here, could potentially be changed with a different color or texture if we wanted to. Now, let's talk about the pattern creation tools that we have over here, which is what we wanted to see, right? Well, we have four main ways to create a pattern: polygon, rectangle, ellipse, and spiral. As you can see, we do have shortcuts HSE, as in I don't know. Polygon S, polygon is the H, S is in rectangle, and E as in ellipse. And then we got the spiral. The spiral I don't really use, or at least I don't remember having a project recently where I used the spiral one. It's good to create like the trims on a skirt and things like that, but it's not something that I've used a lot, to be honest. Now, how does this work? Well, if we're using the polygon tool, you literally are going to click on different points, and that's going to create a pattern. When you hit enter, the pattern is going to close, or if you click on the point right there. Of course, this is, well, a little bit difficult to control, right? Like it's not super precise, so it's not ideal. See that what's happening right there? When I created the pattern, it actually created this pattern right where it's supposed to be on the 2D view, right on the 3D view. And there's a little bit of lapping geometry right there. And that's very important because this is something that you're going to face quite a bit. And the best way to do it is either to reset the arrangement, which I'm going to show you shortly, or literally try to like push this out, because you can see that this might be overlapping with a lot of faces right there. So if we stop the simulation, there's this little shirt right here, which has two resets available for us. Reset 2D arrangement and reset 3D arrangement. If we reset 3D arrangement, it's going to go back to the position it was before we started the simulation. However, if, for instance, this guy is like, let's say up here, and we do reset 2D arrangement, it's going to be resetted to the point where it is on the 2D arrangement window, which is over here. Sometimes you're going to have to want, or you will want to have one of those, and sometimes you're going to want to have the other one. So it will depend on the situation. Normally, I do reset 3D arrangement because it takes a little bit of time to make sure that things are set up. For instance, if we just like rotate this a little bit like that, and if I were to reset 2D arrangement, I'm going to have to do that again. So not super advisable. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's how you create one with the polygon tool. Now, there's another type of polygon that you can use. If you click on the polygon and you click and drag, you're going to create a curve. This one's going to be very important because it's going to allow us to have some more smoothing transitions on our garments later on. So as you can see, now we have a very nice clean curve going around. And the cool thing is the triangles that are generating the mesh right here will adapt to that curvature, and you will get a very nice fancy like a skirt or whatever you're trying to do with this curvature right here. These are called curve points. I'm going to go here to this option, which allows me to edit the components. You are, of course, hopefully coming from something about 3D or 3D related. So you know that usually in polygons, we have edges, faces, and vertices. Here we don't have that, but we do have the points. So this point right here can be converted or deleted. In this case, it can be converted to a curve point. And if we do that, we delete those handles. And now this is a single curvature that we can change. Again, we can go here. There's the edit curvature option. We can click and move the curvature to change it around. If we want to add a point, we can add a point right here, which you just click somewhere, hit enter, and there we go. That's a new point here on our pattern. So one of the things that I love about Marvelous is that it's very organic. You don't need to worry about polygons. You don't need to worry about extrudes or support edges or smooth modifiers or anything. You just create the patterns and you just make sure that they look good on the simulation. We're going to take care of retopology later on when we want to really optimize them for our goals. So that's the polygon. Now for the rectangle and the ellipse, there's a little bit of a change. Of course, if I just click and drag like what we did before, you're going to create a simple pattern. But if you just click, you're going to get the option to get a specific size. And this is very, very important. Why is this important? Because this allows us to control how big or not we want certain patterns to be. So for instance, this one right here, I want this to be a 2-meter square sort of like tablecloth. So I'm going to say 2000. Why 2000? Because this is in millimeters, remember. So if we think about 2 meters, we're like a couple of units away from that. So we need to multiply by the proper element. But look at that. We can grab this guy right here. I'm going to move it a little bit more center. There we go. I'm going to reset the 2D arrangement. And then I'm going to try to press on the very center of this element, right around there. And I'm going to rotate it. Push it just a little bit there. And if we simulate, of course, this thing is going to fall and it's going to create a very nice tablecloth here for our wooden table. This is how we do it. This is how we create garments. If you want to pause and try it yourself, go for it. There's still a couple of things that I want to share with you, but this is how we're going to be creating garments here inside of Marvel Designer. I'm going to go to the fabric here, and just to make this thing look a little bit nicer, I'm going to go for like this sort of like dark olive green color. There we go. And yeah, that's it. Now, you might be wondering, well, what can we do with this? Like, is there anything else that we can change? And the answer is yes, we can change so many things. For instance, if you already have this thing right here and you go back to the 2D window and you scale this up, right? This is now bigger. It's a bigger element. We just simulate, and that new amount of fabric, as you can see, it's going to appear here on our simulation. That's one of the things that we're going to be doing and tweaking quite a bit. Changing the length of a line, changing the surface area, or just modifying where certain points are. And this is what's going to allow us to, well, create something that looks very, very cool. So this one right here, for instance, it's looking nice, right? Like we get a very, very nice like distribution of wrinkles pretty much everywhere. But what if we wanted to, you know, like generate something a little bit more interesting? Well, at any point, again, we can select one of these guys with this option right here, which is the transform point segment option. And you're going to see a couple of things. First of all, on your mouse, you're going to have a number. That number is the length of that edge. And that's very important because that will allow us to see, well, how long something is going to be. And here is where I want to introduce to you a very interesting concept, which is stitching. We can create multiple patterns and stitch them together to generate something that looks a little bit more nice. So first of all, I want to go over here. I'm gonna try to pull this thing up a little bit. There we go. You can see the simulation is a little bit heavy, and the reason why the simulation is a little bit heavy is because it's a big object. Usually a character is not this big, but hey, like if the software allows us to do it, let's do it. So let's say we wanted to add a trim to the whole tablecloth. You know how sometimes we get this sort of like ruffled effect, and again, like on skirts or on curtains, just like a little bit of extra detail. Well, we would need to create a new pattern with this exact same length, which in this case is 24,084.7. 24847. There we go. So I'm going to go over here to rectangle, and it's going to be 2487. It can be 0.4. That's fine if we want to be completely precise. Now this one, I'm going to click on this first icon. The shortcut is A, and I'm going to rotate this with Shift so that it's completely like strapped right there. I'm definitely going to make it a little bit smaller. And as you can see, there's going to be a big element right over here. So how do we connect these two elements? We use something called sewing. We're going to sew them together. And we're going to be using this little machine right here, which allows us to use this segment sewing option. Shortcut is the letter N. So if you click on one side of the line and you click on the other side of the line, you're going to see this. You're going to see a bunch of lines going from one of the borders to the border of the table. I'm going to rotate this so that it's a little bit easier to see. I'm going to get this closer. One of the tricks that you're going to see with clothing here inside of Marvel Designer is that the closer you are in your simulation, the easier it's going to be for the simulation to actually work. If it's really far away, things start going crazy and there's a lot of calculation and it just takes way too long. So now this segment right here is sewn to this segment right here. And if I simulate, this is what we're going to get. We're just going to get kind of like an extension. Right now, it looks like an extension of the fabric, right? It actually might be imperceptible where that thing is. So let me do something over here. I'm going to add a new material. And this one, let's make it like a darker green. Almost black. I'm gonna go to selection, grab this pattern, and click on this little icon right here, which applies the material to the fabric. And there we go. So hey, not bad. We get a very nice effect right here, and we get, as you can see, the whole effect over there. Let's Control C and Control B to copy and paste these elements. I'm gonna rotate this one over here, and then Control C, Control B, click over here, rotate this one. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly this rotation, but you know, as soon as or as close as possible. Let's go over here, grab this one, Control C, Control B, and there we go. Now, these guys are all independent. You can see that they're becoming a mess over here in the 3D view. So this is a good point to just reset the 2D arrangement for all of them. I'm going to go back to my little sewing tool, grab the segment sewing. There we go. So from here to here, from here to here, from here to here. And why not? If we want this to be, you know, a little bit rounder, we can sew from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, and from here to here. Now, be very careful with this. This might happen to you where you create a sewing line and it does this sort of like crisscross effect. Sometimes certain garments or patterns will require this sort of like flipped like sewing line. But if this happens to you, don't panic. You can go to Edit Sewing and the shortcut is Control B, which is going to reverse the sewing. Control B. Hey, come on. Go here to Edit Sewing. Grab that one. There we go. Control B. Control B will flip the pattern and it will give you the straight pattern that we're looking for. So now over here in the 3D view, I'm going to grab all of the elements. And once you grab everything with Shift and click on something, you're going to get the gizmo. And as you can see, everything is going to be applied to the same element. So the transformation is going to be applying to all of the different patterns right around there. There we go. So yeah, that's it. We just simulate. We wait for the simulation to do its process. And as you can see, we're going to get this sort of like round effect. And we're going to get a very, very nice tablecloth alongside our whole table right here. So it looks good. But what if I told you that we can make this look a little bit better? And the way we're going to do this is we are going to make this fabric a little bit bigger. This is a concept that I don't remember exactly when I learned it, when I was learning marbles, of course. But when I learned this, it was like just like mind-blowing knowing that this is like one of the secrets to getting more wrinkles, which is what we want, right? When we're working with clothing, we want wrinkles. We want things to look very interesting, not just like plain and stretched out. So if you have a bigger piece of fabric being connected to a smaller piece of fabric, inevitably what's going to happen is this big piece of fabric is going to have to crunch itself a little bit more, and you're going to get more wrinkles. So the best advice, or one of the best advices I can give you, and we're only in video number 2, by the way, one of the best advices that I can give you is just make things a little bit bigger if you want to have a little bit more wrinkles. So I'm going to stop the simulation right here. I'm going to grab the patterns, this one and this one, and let's just make them a little bit bigger. And I'm going to grab these two guys right here, and I'm also going to make them a little bit bigger. You're going to see that right now the simulation looks horrible, but as soon as we simulate, since the stitching has to be kind of like maintained, like you cannot change the stitching, but you change the length of the pattern, what's going to happen is you're going to start getting more and more wrinkles on your fabric. Okay. Now, of course, there's a couple of weird pinches right here, and this is because we have a square shape trying to go into a round shape. So we're going to be talking about physical properties of the cloth, but these are the principles that you need to understand before we start moving into more advanced topics. So that's it for this one, my friends. I'm going to stop the video right here because we've already gone a little bit longer than expected. I want you to import the table, get your textures ready, and do this very quick exercise of just a very nice tablecloth with a little trim. On the next one, we're going to do one even nicer. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.